is on.
Who's that? Hey, Tony. Oh, wait. Are you not here? He's not here. That's Tim. My bad.
I was supposed to be like, oh, wait, we have both debaters? No.
Yeah, I thought so because one of our judges has the same initials. My bad.
Yeah.
Hey, Tyler, are you decided after this round?
I actually prefer Neg. Who's speaking?
Oh, flip hasn't even happened yet?
Flip hasn't happened yet. We're waiting on my competitor, I believe.
Oh no. Well, where's the prep?
Yeah, that's kind of what I've been wondering.
Prep is for the week.
No,
Do it live.
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do it live. All right.
There's Tony.
Hey,
I can
Tony.
find a coin if y'all want to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
If one
Let me
of
get a coin.
has mine.
Yeah, I got it. All right. Do y'all know your records?
My record is 4-2.
Same.
Dang. All right. Does anybody prefer who calls?
I don't prefer Tony. You can call.
Sure. I guess I'll call heads. I suppose. That's a while.
Heads. All
Sure.
right. It is tails. I don't know if you can see that. Nope. Whatever. It is tails. So what do you want?
I'll go Neg.
Cool.
Okay then.
And I'll be right back.
Sounds good.
Neg. So Sac stays F, Central Michigan is Neg. All right.
Correct.
Can I please save it so it'll switch them? Oh no. Oh, it's gonna mess me up all day.
So I'll make a speed drop real quick. I'm assuming there isn't one already. Or is there?
There isn't, to my knowledge.
Okay.
And now that I'm looking at my ballot for the judges, at least last time I was using 8x8, it doesn't actually show whoever the last of us submitting the ballot, like, you know, that the decisions are in. So I guess since I'm chair, if y'all want to privately message me when you're done with your decisions, and I can announce or whatever.
Okay.
Okay, I'm dropping a link in the chat, and I'll drop the doc once everyone's ready. I don't know why some people just do the codes.
I got the juice this morning, and it's just starting to ache.
Is it your first or second shot?
First one.
Yeah. I feel that.
Yeah, it's just starting. It was wild. Cleveland's got a really good such setup. It's like you're in and out, half hour, like 45 minutes max.
I'm part of the restaurant industry, so I was like one of the first like 5,000 in my county, or like in my
Nice.
area, I guess, to get it. And yeah, first rounds was just ridiculous. I was telling people, I'm like, I could easily sneak you in and get you a vaccine, no problem, because they don't check anything. We had like QR codes, but they never scanned them. And
Oh yeah,
we
they
were
didn't
just waiting
scan
around
mine.
forever. Yeah.
They just looked at my husband
Oh.
and I. Was like, they were just like, same last name, and I was like, no. They were like, oh. Which I'm gonna. I have it my new last name on like all of my stuff, but the Social Security office was still gonna make me go in to change my name. And I was like, nah, I think I can wait.
If everyone's ready, I'll
Yeah.
drop the doc. Yep. Sorry. Just as
Did y'all have any questions for us, or no?
I'm okay.
yeah, I'm okay too. There's doc. Let me know once everyone has access.
Just get my life situated. There we go.
I'm good.
I'm okay.
Oh, sounds
Oh.
good.
Please, computer. Please, I'm begging you. There we go. Okay.
Judges, good. Is Alex there, Judge? Yeah. Oh well. Hope There we go. Cool. Okay, I'm starting the timer. No. The current employment-based immigration system is broken and suffers from backlog. Green card availability and per-country quota district lawful permanent residency, economic times 2019, and permanent residency card allows a person to live and work permanently in the U.S. The current system imposes a cap on people who get green cards in the U.S. Make currently 105,000 green cards available every year to employment-based immigrants. Present no more than 7% of these green cards go nationals in any one country, even though some countries are more popular than others. Immigration are penalized in their country of origin. The immigrant system is severely broken and suffers from decades long backlog. That's the plan. The United States federal government will implement immigration reform that removes substantial statutory restrictions on legal immigration into the United States by A, removing lines 1 and 2 under D, worldwide level of employment-based immigrants that restrict unemployment-based legal immigration to 140,000 annual employment-based permanent residency cards made available, and remove lines 2 under A, per country level that restrict the number of employment-based permanent residency cards that are made available to natives of any single foreign state at 7% or 2% in the case of a dependent area. Solvency. Removing the per-country caps is not enough. A dramatic increase of green cards is also needed. By 2020, America's employment-based immigration system is broken. So, needs to address this emergency. Abandoning per-country limits would be a good first step, but Congress also needs to increase the number of green cards available dramatically to resolve this issue. Now is key. Removing the cap and per-country requirement solves for high-skilled immigrant backlog, discrimination, economic competitiveness. Economic times 2019, we must eliminate discriminatory backlogs and so that high-skilled immigrants not vulnerable exploitation and continue to contribute to the economy and combination with the per-country limits backlogs to keep nuclear families apart for decades while preventing U.S. employers from accessing and retaining the employees needed to stay competitive. To ensure America remains globally competitive, we need to ease the backlog and leverage talent and expertise of our high-skilled immigrants and remove the last vestige of discrimination from our immigration system. Advantages are going to be semiconductors. U.S. industry is on the brink. Domestic workforce can't sustain competitive challenge and along the supply chain, which threatens progress in critical tech. Hunters will suit 2020. U.S. semiconductor industry is a tremendous economic strategy that drives progress in AI and other critical tech, but other countries can increasingly challenge the leadership across the supply chain to remain the lead. In the U.S. will have to strengthen the semiconductor talent. American war talent will not be sufficient. High-skilled immigrant reform is one of the best levers available for all makers to preserve U.S. Leadership in the semiconductor industry. Continued leadership is not assured, but if the country can leverage its workforce talent, there is more than enough reach for optimism. The plan uniquely solves. The status quo is not addressing the backlog, which is key to supporting the semiconductor industry. Hunters will suit 2020. Reforms that could support the semiconductor industry. One target reform could involve country-based caps on the number of employment-based green cards that are issued each year. Green card applicants has long exceeded the number of available caps. Congress limited country-based caps have benefit the semiconductors. Most especially policymakers could increase the number of available employment-based green cards. Such reforms would require a large slate of efforts politically unfeasible today. Government subsidies are not enough. Only immigration reform can supercharge the domestic semiconductor industry. Like Home 2020, Congress earmarked billions of taxpayer dollars for the semiconductor industry, for American semiconductor manufacturers to counter heavily subsidized Chinese competitive. What perhaps most striking of the current push is the absence of any discussion of the one policy that has actually been proven to supercharge industry: high-skilled immigration. Impact scenario 1 will be leadership. China is threatening semiconductor leadership now. Maintaining the health of the domestic microchip industry is key to U.S. national security and global hedge. Ooh, some changes Oh well. Herman 2020. China's push to become totally self-sufficient in semiconductors and to command the heights of the microchip industry is part and parcel of a larger push for global hedge. We could face a situation in which tech companies have to rely on a chip supply chain that is shaky at best and actual threat to national security at worst. Americans are realizing that our economic and national security depends on the health and safety of our microchip industry. Losing the tech edge to China shifts the balance of power and guarantees extinction from nuclear Armageddon. Kronig and Gopal-Swamy, 2018. System balance of power are problematic because under manufactured bargaining, new technologies threaten to create potentially destabilizing shifts in balance of power. The patient believes emerging tech could provide us with a newfound local military advantage over the U.S. Remember, we're going to initiate direct conflict with the U.S. And once nuclear arms states are at war, there's an inherent risk of nuclear war. The consequences of Washington losing the race for tech superiority might mean nuclear Armageddon. So impact scenario 2 is going to be electric vehicles. Semiconductors are key to electric vehicles. EV production is on the brink due to chip shortage. Bolstering manufacturing is key to meeting the rebounding demand for automotive chips, in 2021. Semiconductors are the brains of modern electronics. In the automotive space, chips and mid-air cars are exponentially safer, smarter, and more efficient. But a global shortage has impacted the automotive market and slowing production of some cars. The shortage is a reminder of the essential role semiconductors play in transportation. New vehicles increasingly rely on chips for fuel efficiency, safety, and other features. This growth in electric cars will play an even bigger role in global demand for chips. EVs are the internal link to reducing emissions. Conventional vehicles have limits, while EV emissions can be offset with decarbonization effects. Haas-Father 2019. Electric vehicles represent a substantial reduction in the life cycle of greenhouse gas emissions, and as electric generation becomes less carbon intensive, electric vehicles will become more preferable to all conventional vehicles. In virtual cases, there are limitations in how efficient petrol and diesel vehicles can become. Low carbon electricity and increased battery manufacturing efficiency can cut much of the manufacturing emissions of nearly all electricity emissions from EVs. Extinction from climate change can be averted, but cutting emissions is key. It is not too late to mitigate climate catastrophe. Prefer our study on specific and recency. Go to 2019. It was a stark climate change report came out that it is not too late for humans to make changes. Details most updated and seeing climate change. So the report looks 2100 to see if major changes are made to mitigate contributing factors like carbon dioxide emissions. It would be much easier to cope with the changes that come out 2100 if adapting to a changing environment and more importantly to avert planetary disaster. The authors were surprisingly optimistic, showing that while the details of progressing climate change are sobering, we can do something about it. You can see it is much more rosy picture with perhaps less than a meter of sea level rise even centuries in the future, and something that I can think we can all deal with and tolerate. To change our future with dramatic mitigations of human activity affecting climate change. The report outlines how policymaker and all of us at home can have the power to affect our future in one way or another. Framing, we outweigh our reversibility. Extinction is irreversible and risk the lives of people who have yet to come. Prioritize extinction impact future generations outweigh Beckstead et al. 2014. Even small probabilities we could expect a loss of the order of millions of lives. Such a bad outcome could lead to the collapse of modern civilization. I would be sure to include the number of people in future generations who would not be born. We are talking about some 500 trillion people yet to come. It is therefore not just a public good, but an intergenerational public good. Future generations have no sound decisions. Their interests are underrepresented in the status quo. And on that note, I'd like to thank you all for coming, and let's have an amazing debate. I am open for cross-sects. I'll start the 3 minutes when you start asking questions.
Okay. Are all of my judges ready? If I don't get an answer from like some of you, I'll just assume you are. Okay. All right. First off, on your plan text, I just want to clarify that your plan only affects EB visas.
Yes.
Which EB visas specifically?
It would be all the EB visas 1 through 5.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. And for the per country level cap, that's the entirety of the per country level cap?
Yeah, the 7% and 2%. Yeah,
okay.
Just across the board. There's not like anyone that we're picking out of, I guess, like some countries. So yeah, it's all of them.
Okay. Cool. On the semiconductor advantage, what is the internal link to solvency? Is it innovation?
Which scenario are you referring to right now? Because it's different.
Yeah. I'm well for solvency on the entire advantage. Like you talk about the domestic workforce and how it's unsustainable currently.
So like the idea on the leadership one could be innovation. Yeah, we're keeping the tech edge, but on the other one, it's more supply chain. So we have a continuous supply of the semiconductor chips because we need those for the electric vehicles and the output.
Okay, so cool.
But
So the only
electric
issue
vehicles also been from innovation, but that's more of a supply chain argument on that one. So
yeah, so the only like barrier to current EV production is the chip shortage.
Yeah, that we don't have a secure supply chain in the U.S. because our workers aren't able to keep up.
Okay, cool. Yeah, is there any modeling argument on the EV? Like you claim to solve climate change, but like, is there any modeling? Do other countries do this?
Well, like the rollout of electric vehicle across the board has been shown to make an impact, but we're saying we're not going to be able to keep up with like the expected needs. So like if you look to like, I believe it is the code that where it's like, oh no, the Haas-Father. Like every like instance is good, and that the electric vehicles are like an internal link to reducing these emissions.
Right.
So
but
we can't say like France is doing this, and which is why it's good. So no, we don't exactly have like a modeling, I suppose. But like the electric vehicles have shown a correlation with emission reduction in production as well as just the obvious use on the road. So
Yeah, for sure. No, that makes sense. But I was just asking, like, your scenario is about EV production and supply chains, or like the chip shortage in the United States, right?
yes.
Okay. Cool. No, 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 no. Yeah, can you just summarize the leadership scenario for me?
Leadership is kind of like a world stability sort of thing. Like we're saying that like right now with U.S. currently having the tech edge that creates a form of stability between us and other countries such as China, and that like if other countries were to like view this imbalance or that America starts lagging behind in tech, that can be seen as like a potential risk of conflict. More other countries would be more willing to potentially create small localized contact, which we say would, when two nuclear states go to war, even localized war, it has the potential to devolve into nuclear war.
Okay, cool. I
As
have
per
15 seconds left, but I'll see that. And I'm going to start prep now. Okay, I stopped with 2:30 left. And I'm going to put that in the chat, and I'll upload the doc. Okay, doc is uploaded. And I'll give an order. The order is going to be 4 off, and then case. There's a DA at the bottom, but I probably won't get to that. And it'll be case in the order of solvency. I'll talk a little bit about the leadership scenario and then the EV scenario.
So 4 off, case off on the bottom?
Yes, there might be an off at the bottom.
Okay.
So yeah. And if I can get some cue when everyone's ready, I can begin.
Oh, I'm good to go.
Coolio. Coolio. And so we begin. First off, is T, broad reform. A, interpretation. Immigration reform means revamp the process. Land in 2015. In Washington, immigration reform typically refers to a set of proposals for a broad overhaul of the U.S. immigration system. These proposals revamp the process for legal immigration. B, violation. The affirmative just makes a tiny change to EB visas. C, standards. 1, ground. The topic is already F bias, with most scholars advocating increased immigration, allowing them to pick any tiny part of the topic. It allows them a chance to no link cord negative disads like brain drain and politics. 2, limits. There are around 30 visa types, each with many restrictions and few connections to each other. Allowing changes to a small part of immigration means having 30 topics instead of 1. D, voters. Topicality is not predictable in the first set of cases. The negative can be prepared to debate on their merits. Now go to the meat DA. A, immigration increases meat consumption. Rickerton et al. In 2018. For meat, the expected consumption among those born in the U.S. is higher than the consumption among immigrants across racial and ethnic groups, especially except for whites. Immigrants tend to behave more like U.S.-born individuals in terms of their food consumption as their time in the U.S. increases. B, the impact outweighs in terms of the case. Meat hurts humans in many ways, and it's unethical to eat animals. In addition, the meat industry is implicated in a variety of different environmental issues. Vergans and Savalescu in 2017. Livestock farming has a vast environmental footprint, water degradation, biodiversity loss, acid rain, coral reef degradation, and deforestation. Livestock farming contributes 18% of human-produced greenhouse gases. Climate change alone poses increased risk of extreme weather events and has been described as the greatest threat to human health. 2, it requires masses of grain, water, and land. 3, it hurts the global poor. Feeding grain to livestock increases global demand and drives up grain prices. 4, it causes unnecessary animal suffering. Sentient creatures, animals are sentient creatures. Most meat is produced in ways that completely ignore animal welfare. Industrial livestock farming relies heavily on antibiotic use. This contributes to the growing public health problem of antibiotic resistance. High meat consumption is linked with poor health outcomes. Next, the committee DA. First, the Judiciary Committee is balancing judicial appointments with legislation now, and part of that is explicitly avoiding immigration. The plan overwhelms them and ensures Biden can't remake the judiciary. Levine in 2021. Graham said legalizing people in this environment where there's total chaos would be hard to do. When asked which parts of Biden's agenda could actually get through judiciary, Cornyn noted criminal justice reform. That's a short list, isn't it? The committee also is set to hold hearings in the coming weeks while shouldering the considerable burden of moving Biden's picks for the federal judiciary. There are 69 federal judiciary vacancies. Judges will be a significant focus. Democrats vow they'll use the committee as more than just a bench-filling machine. I think it's important for the Judiciary Committee to balance its important role in confirming judges with making legislative progress on some of these key priority areas. Next, time is of the essence. Failure to act locks in conservatism. Washington Post in 2021. More than a third of judges nationwide are eligible to step back, with Democrats narrowly controlling the Senate and with the prospect that they could lose control during the 2022 midterms. Biden intends to move quickly to fill openings affecting significant policies, including environmental regulations, gun laws, and immigration. Senior administration officials view judicial nominees as one area where the president will invest early political capital. And finally, the impact is conservatism is an existential risk and results in a host of impacts. Green in 2017. It's a full-blown existential crisis. We need to stop treating conservatism as just another legitimate ideological choice. It's a murder weapon. Today, so-called conservatives are the enemy of equality, human rights, and liberty. It's not just one buffoon. The right has been tricking in racism, sexism, homophobia, xenophobia, military aggression, and environmental destruction. Now the CP. The United States federal government will pass legislation based on Title IX for funding of STEM fields. This provides the workers to solve the affirmative. Ingram in 2014. In the same way, Title IX completely changed the landscape for girls in sports. It's time for a full court press on girls in STEM. Women feel close to half of all jobs in the U.S. economy. They feel less than 25% of STEM jobs. 75% of all college students are women or students of color, yet they represent only 45% of STEM degrees. Too many of these young women leave STEM degree paths. Of 100 female bachelor students, 12 will graduate with a STEM major, and only 3 will continue to work in STEM 10 years later. Being a minority female in STEM can be particularly isolating. Title IX, a senior scholar for the Women's Research and Education Institute, calls the law the most important step for gender equality since the 19th Amendment. Achieving the same level of success for girls in STEM that was experienced by girls in sports is vitally important. Next, more women in STEM solves the affirmative better. Burt in 2018. Whether you're studying seatbelt design or heart medication, your research should include both male and female subjects. Many still don't know that failing to consider sex is the benefit of today's society, wrote president of YSAT. When it comes to research in both the academic and private sectors, gender diversity can have a number of advantages. Diverse research teams are more likely to come up with new ideas and perspectives. Citing a report in the Harvard Business Review, there are a number of examples of women doing scientific and medical research inspired by their experiences as women. And finally, the plan crowds out women from STEM fields. Ransom and Winters in 2016. We find that the Immigration Act changed native skills investment and utilization in 3 ways. It pushed black males out of STEM majors, it pushed white male STEM graduates out of STEM occupations, and it pushed white female STEM graduates out of the workforce. Now on to solvency. First turn, restrictions send immigrants to Canada, which solves innovation better. Kirkwood in 2020. Following Trump's decision to temporarily suspend the H-1B visa program, Canada tech leaders are calling on those affected to reconsider location of Canada. CBRE named Toronto North America's fastest growing tech market after the city added more tech jobs in the Bay Area, Seattle, and Washington, D.C. combined. This is not the first time the Canadian tech ecosystem has reacted emphatically against restrictive U.S. immigration programs. Next turn, the plan causes a boom-bust cycle that makes the environment worse. Rosenthal in 2020. Deep-pocketed companies lobby Washington on immigration are joined by universities. As Teitelbaum observes that what emerges an elaborately successful campaign to keep labor flowing. Teitelbaum sees at least 5 distinct alarm boom bust talent shortage cycles. The business community expresses concerns that the U.S. lags international peers. The government boosts the supply of workers. A flooded market becomes prone to shocks. Younger generations of students pursue different career paths. And finally, on solvency, turn. The plan reduces employment investment and training. Rosenthal in 2020. The steady flow of relatively cheap H-1Bs has helped diminish incentives for many companies to invest in training and development. Warden professor wondered how businesses could complain of difficulties finding qualified candidates with unemployment hovering just below a post-recession high. The real culprits are the employers themselves. Now, I'm going to go straight to the EV scenario. First, warming is not an existential threat. Piper in 2019. The report frustrated many climate scientists. 6 researchers argued that the report overstates the risk from climate change. The fact is that even the most pessimistic reports evaluated responsibly don't suggest climate change will end human civilization. I'm going to skip the turn that plan increases extraction. Go to U.S. can eliminate emissions and change nothing. NAM 2019. The U.S. now accounts for just 15% of the world's annual emissions. The developing world is rising in energy consumption far faster than the U.S. The U.S. could completely eliminate its carbon emissions and barely affect the future course of climate. Yeah, and on the leadership impact scenario, it's solved by the counter plan. Like we have enough workers, like in minority and as far as minorities and women, to solve for what the plan does. And I'm open for cross.
Before the cross, can I get like what cards you cut? I kind of missed it. I got
yeah,
red
for sure.
Piper, but I don't know exactly what you cut on the.
Yeah, for sure.
Can I see that real quick then?
I'll send Mark Doc.
Because I know you got to the Piper, I believe it was, but after that I can't tell exactly where you went.
Yep. Well, actually, this might be easier than me sending an entirely new doc. I didn't get to the second card on the EV scenario, but I read the NAM 2019 evidence.
So you skipped to NAM
Yep.
down here?
And I didn't read the retrenchment DA at the bottom.
So we didn't do. So we just didn't do SIM.
Yeah, just the one card.
It's terrible. Re-entrenchment's gone.
Yeah, retrenchment's gone.
Awkwardly deleted half of that DA. Okay, so I've got NAM and Piper. Okay, let's start cross X.
Okay.
That still says 7 minutes. Starting now. Okay, so let's start off your immigration reform. So you're pretty much trying to say that all immigration reforms have to be broad and wide sweeping change?
Yeah, that's our interpretation of the term immigration reform in the resolution.
Okay, so does the resolution not parametricize it down to removing legal statutory restrictions?
Right, but it says enact immigration reform, and we're interpreting that as mean you have to like formidably revamp the process.
Okay. So long as we show that, I guess this will have a considerable reform, we're fine.
Yeah, to meet the interp, you have to prove that like you revamp the process as opposed to like the violation.
So it's just a substantial revamp is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, let's go into your meat DA. Does it not say on the meat DA that like how exactly are the immigrants eating more meat? I guess is there just like a general consumption idea here, literal consumption?
No. So the Rickerton et al. 2018 card is based on statistical analysis that says that the United States is the global leader in meat consumption, and immigrants from countries, particularly from countries that don't eat as much meat, increase their meat consumption when they're in the U.S., which is like a unique reason that immigration, as opposed to just general population increases meat consumption.
Okay. Let's go into your committees DA.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it judiciary? I guess is a better term to phrase this as. So you're pretty much just saying that this will trade off somehow?
Yeah, the Judiciary Committee can't handle both the mandates of like employing this legislation and also appointing judges.
And last onto your, at least last for your off case, STEM CP.
Mm-hmm.
So I put this for you. No, actually, we don't have any question on that. It's pretty straightforward for me. Solvent. So how are these restrictions from 2020 going to send people to Canada now?
Well, I mean, the warrants of that card still stand that like when immigrants aren't able to come.
Oh, actually, sorry. I've got a better question because I didn't actually understand this one. The boom bust cycle. Explain. Thesis.
Yeah, effectively, when you like create this insurgence of workers or this like significant increase in workers, the market becomes prone to shocks and it creates this sort of like cyclic feedback.
So if I show that like it's not going to outright shock the system, I'm fine. So I don't show it's like hordes of people coming at once. If it's
Yeah, I mean, my evidence says that the market becomes prone to shocks when you inject, like when you boost the supply of workers. So I mean, yeah, if you have a direct refutation of this, then we can have that debate. But
Sure. Let's see. Oh, and that's fine. That's cool. I will do 4 minutes of running prep starting now. I'm running out of my mouse pad. I'll stop that with 1 minute on the clock and upload a doc. Oh, right, it's open. Ugh. Okay. Once everyone has it open, just let me know.
I'm ready whenever you are.
Judges ready? I guess say if you're not ready. That's probably easier.
Was there an order that I just like blanked on?
Oh no, that's gonna go the same way. Same exact roadmap as my opponent. It's gonna go the T. I've got T, meat, judiciary, counterplan, all case.
T. And solvency.
And then like a little bit of warming arguments at the bottom. Okay. Let's see, make sure everything open and timer. Cool. Starting 3, 2, 1, go. So first, we meet the interpretation. Our plan is an overarching approach to immigration reform. By removing overall and per-country caps, we impact all areas of immigration. Counterinterpret the resolution defines immigration reform. The app must implement a policy that removes substantial statutory restrictions. That is a conjugation and rest. The resolution is a subordinate clause defining the scope of the immigration reform. The affirmative must mail and remove substantial statutory restrictions. Lexico 2019, conjunction increasing a subordinate clause expressing a statement or a hypothesis. We meet this interpretation. RF implements immigration reform that removes substantial statutory restrictions and limits. Our interpret statutory limits. We see cut a ceiling, they set a floor. Their interpret allows extra topical mandates beyond the removing statutory restrictions. Predictability, because it's most grammatically correct interpretation. The topic does not anything that isn't specified in the wording of the topic you consider topical. Their interprets omnidirectional. Of course, you have to include mandates that remove restrictions and alter restrictions, increase border enforcement, etc. This leaves terrible nay ground. Look to like their card where it literally says border enforcement. Intent to define. Their cards are descriptive, not definitional. It best describes what some immigration reforms look like in the past, but it does not describe or define what immigration reform must be. Our interpret is substantially better on this question. Also, judges, if you just think we're reasonable at the end of the day, don't vote us down on this T. Like, this is an immigration reform as per the resolutions, parametrization. Going on to the meat DA, I give you a card about how no-link high immigrant populations not lead to increased consumption rates. Madrid, this isn't like directly computational. The cities with large immigrant populations do not have the highest levels of greenhouse gas emissions, resident density, and the availability of public transit reasons why states country have these characteristics. Oh, sorry. Low per capita footprint. These characteristics are found in the larger cities, immigrant-rich neighborhoods. So, like, not directly computational, but it's like an idea of like immigrants actually, like when they come here, actually lower our greenhouse gas emissions, and as an example of like us destroying the planet. But if we go directly into their card, actually their own card, their Kitchen et al. Card says for meat, the expected consumption among those born in the U.S. is higher than the consumption among immigrants across racial and ethnic groups, except for whites. And considering a lot of the H-1B visas, like I guess aren't the stereotypical like people coming, then we don't actually increase consumption rates. Like their own uniqueness is going in the wrong direction when it says immigrants have a lower consumption rate than the native-born Americans. So, okay. Your actually uniqueness kind of overwhelms the link there a little bit. Going on to your judiciary, yet again, look to their Levine 2021 on the uniqueness level. It doesn't actually specify there's ever going to be a trade-off or anything here. Like this is at legalizing people in this environment where this total chaos will be hard to do. So it's saying that perhaps Biden doesn't have the political capital to pass our kind of an affirmative right now, but like, we can fiat the passage of it, and it doesn't. And it all this says is that they're potentially looking forward to like actually reforming the judiciary, but it never says that a passage of the immigration reform bill in here would actually lead to a trade-off with the judiciary. It just says that right now their focus can be on the judiciary, but never actually says that if we pass immigration reform right now, we're going to lose the ability to reform the judiciary. So this, yet again, the uniqueness is like not working in the right direction for them. If it's not a Brink story, it's saying that, great, right now things are looking pretty good for reforming the judiciary. It's not, it's working in our direction. If anything, it's not showing that we're going to cause some kind of a Brink. Going on to the STEM CP. We're already seeing, like, look at the card solvency. This is from 2014. We've already actually seen efforts to include, I guess, women and other minorities and this is particularly parameterizing younger women. So we've already seen efforts to include them in like the STEM field since 2014, but also there's no reason we can't permit this. No reason we can incentivize having more women included in the STEM field, as well as incentivizing this immigration reform. The only card that they might try to say this on would be their last one, Ransom and Winters, from 2016. And first up front, like a lot of the people here that will be first beginning the benefit of this immigration reform that we're doing is a lot of people who are stuck in the limbo on the H-1B caps. So like all the people who are here already on H-1B visas technically are already in the U.S. and are working. They're just not guaranteed to be working for these. They don't have a solid level of employment because right now they're at the mercy of the state, whether they stay or not. They don't have long-term permanent residency. So a lot of people here that would be technically pushing people out are already here as per H-1B visas, which will be more important later down the road. So there's no reason we can't perm this. There's no reason we can't incentivize women in the STEM field as well as take this immigration reform. Going on to the solvency cards. Their first turn here, look to the date. This is from 2020. Biden's already been releasing these restrictions that we're sending them to Canada. Go to the next one. The Canada causes a boom bust cycle. Yet again, refer to my H-1B. Like these people are already here on H-1B visas. A lot of them are already here like right now. These would be the first ones who get like these elevated to EB status. So in a world where they're already here, like it's not really going to be causing this boom bust cycle because the shock isn't going to be immense. And they say reduces employment. Look at this. Also, it's predicated on the H-1B visas from earlier. These are EB visas we're giving out. So like these will be actually long-term permanent resident workers rather than ones that are kind of at the will of what the employment needs and can be kicked out anytime. Going on to their warming is not an existential threat idea. Look to our cards where it says that like pretty much that it is like if don't know how to phrase this for you. Like, this is also from 2019 Goad, and like frustrating climate change. Like, yeah, it says overstates the risk from climate change. And like, sure, we can even like maybe like won't be absolutely cataclysmic, but like even then we still have to like, we can already see the effects now. We've seen loss of coral reef barriers. We've seen acidification of the ocean. We've seen we've seen acid rain. We've seen droughts happening all throughout the world. We've seen weather fluctuations in the US alone. So we can definitely say there are going to be some impact from climate change. The only way to avert those getting worse is through our plan. And look to our authors where they're saying, yeah, they even agree, yeah, it's optimistic, but only if we start making change now, and we're not making that change. Turn the plan increases extraction, like it doesn't. The idea of the green paradox, like the Jova paradox, which is like when people gets more efficient, they consume more. But in a world where it's electric vehicles and charging, there's like really no way for them to consume more gas if we're going fully EV vehicles, which is what we're trying to ramp up. At best, they increase more electricity, but if you look to my cards on the EV school, even the production of the electricity and like the just production of the cars in itself still leads to a net negative of greenhouse gases. Yeah, so at best this is mitigation to the impact, and we should still have like the Chinese impact or the idea of like settling the world stage with tech hedge leadership. So at the end of the day, you should still be voting off. We still have access to our everything.
I have 230 left. I'm going to use that now.
Oh, that's where it was.
Okay, that is time. So the order is going to be no new cards. The order is going to be T broad reform. Then the committee DA. Yeah, the committee DA. And then the meat DA. Then the STEM CP. And then case in the same order. In case will just be like an overview where I'll talk about CP solvency for case, I guess. Yeah. Is everyone ready?
Good to go.
Cool, yeah. 6 minutes starting now. Okay, on the T, you can extend the I meet. I won't be going for it, but there's no offense on the flow. On the committee DA, even though it's uncarded, you can extend the non-unique, I guess, that, the card doesn't specifically talk about immigration. I won't be going for this, but that's a defensive argument. So there's no offense on the flow. Now on the meat DA. Just to rehash the story of the meat DA. Particularly the Rickardson et al. Card, it talks about, and my opponent talked about this sentence, that the expected consumption of those born in the U.S. is higher than the consumption of most of immigrants across racial and ethnic groups. But the second part of that card, which is the link, is that immigrants tend to behave more like U.S.-born individuals in terms of their food consumption as their time in the U.S. increases. So the longer that immigrants, and this is extremely important because my opponent tries to get out of a lot of the links and uniqueness stories of the DAs by saying that the AF is just affecting people that are already here, and so it's nullified. One, EB visas are granted to immigrants that are outside of the United States on the basis of LPR. And so the AF, like 100% affects, as per the plan text, affects people outside of the United States and brings them into the United States. But even if it doesn't, the longer that immigrants stay here. So right now, my opponent's story is that these immigrants are here on are not here on permanent residency, but the AF gives them permanent residence. That's going to increase their time in the U.S. and increase their meat consumption as the longer that they stay. That means that immigration is uniquely key to increasing meat consumption, and the non-unique doesn't work. It's not going in the wrong direction. Additionally, there's no work done on the impacts except on case. You can extend my opponent's answer to the warming is not an existential threat. My opponent makes the articulation that even if climate change is not an existential threat, it's still really, really bad. But additionally, on this DA, there are a myriad of other impacts besides climate change that make the affirmative bad and turn the entirety of the case. These are the articulations I make on the Vergunst and Savalescu evidence. So those impacts are things such as water degradation, which is bad in terms of access to resources and implicated in structural violence, biodiversity loss, acid rain, coral reef degradation, and deforestation, and increasing emissions. My opponent reads one card on this, and the card is that high immigration doesn't, the card says that high immigration populations do not lead to increased consumption rates. But gut check this evidence. One, it's from 2010. Two, it is only talking about greenhouse gas emissions. It does not talk about in any way meat consumption, and how meat consumption is implicated in all of these other impacts. This advantage is functionally conceded. And there are no arguments as to how the impacts don't outweigh and turn the case on the basis of magnitude, because these are things that are happening now and we're seeing devastating effects of. My opponent doesn't have any existential impacts that aren't solved by the CP, which I'll get to on the CP flow. But additionally, there's also the ethical arguments that I make in terms of the impacts that it's unethical to eat animals that go unanswered. So the impacts of this advantage go largely conceded. Even if warming isn't an existential risk, it's still really, really bad. And the impacts of this affect outside of just the United States. And so the United States could eliminate emissions card doesn't nullify the impacts of this advantage. And it serves as a net benefit to the CP, which isn't immigration, but go there now. So on the CP, just as an overview, the counterplan solves better than the affirmative. There's zero need to bring STEM workers to the U.S. when we have a huge population of incredibly capable women and minorities who can easily fill the spots. The problem is that they are driven out of the STEM field at every opportunity. This means you can't perm. There's no sufficient answer to this. My opponent just says that people are already here and wouldn't push out. One, the plan text says that you uncap EB visas and uncap the per country limit. That is necessarily bringing people in. So this so the no people are already here argument doesn't work. But my card is also talking about the status quo, where women are excluded and being pushed out of STEM fields. So that doesn't solve, and you just increase and exacerbate the problem. And there's no articulation as to how the how the CP alt does not solve. But but yeah, you can't perm because people continue to push out, as they are doing in the status quo, continue to push women out of STEM fields. And my opponent said that we've already seen efforts to include, but that's not a reason. That's not a reason not to do the affirmative, like the affirmative, or not the affirmative, the CP alt. The CP alt increases funding and attention to the disparate resources that are allocated to women and minority in STEM fields, which is net better than the status quo, and increases the inclusion and participation of women in STEM. Yeah, that's my Ingram 2014 evidence, which goes basically conceded. Conceded Burt 2018 evidence, which is that more women solve STEM better. And the plan crowds out women from STEM fields. There's not a satisfactory answer to this, so you flow this across. And the conjunction of the MEET DA and the STEM CP outweigh all of the AF flow, especially when there's no articulation made in response to my argument that the affirmative, or that the CP alt solves for the first, the leadership scenario. So there's no risk to solvency on that, because the internal link is innovation, and women solves by providing the workers, or the women in STEM CP solves by providing the workers that are necessary. Additionally, on the EV scenario, it only affects the US, and the US could eliminate emissions and change nothing. The warrants of this card are really, really good, because they talk about how the US is just 15% of the world's annual emissions and wouldn't even make a dent. So at the end of the day, you're voting for the CP and the media.
I'll take my 1 minute prep. Okay, shoot. Okay. So it is going to be an overview on top, and we'll pretty much be going from the MEET DA into the counter plan. With, like, I guess on the counter plan, I'll be doing the comparison more so of case versus counter plan, or permed case, whatever, versus counter plan, AF versus counter plan. Okay. If everyone's ready, I'm going to take the silence as yes. Okay.
Yep, I'm good when you are.
Cool. Oh, and well, yeah, actually, is it okay if I flash a card, I guess? It doesn't really matter, just to support an argument I already made. That cool? I hope.
Sure.
Oh, I've got to resave it. My bad. Okay. It's not going to make a big difference because we're already working with, like, the fact the H1B piece is already here, like that was already working with, but it's just there, just in case I need it. Okay. Now, 3 minutes on the clock. Let me know if everyone has it open. Sorry about that. It's pretty much just the backing for that argument, but it's not going to make a difference. Cool. 3, 2, 1. So first of all, you'd be voting for the AF on today's debate, and the main reason you're going to be voting for the AF is, first, the perm and the AF just solve better for, like, these issues. They've completely dropped their solvency arguments out of the last speech, like us. So we pretty much have solvency at this point. And at the end of the day, like, even if you believe some of the mitigation on that global warming extinction, like, they keep the leadership idea is one that both of us are trying to argue over whether the counterplan can do it than the permed or AF world. And, like, if you look to my whole, like, top of case, like, first of all, I tell you when I'm on the counterplan, like, the perm can only solve better, like, in a world where we have both of these influxes of native born workers as well as the foreign-born workers coming in that allows us to more uniquely solve. And you can actually look to my whole entire structure based off that. Like, look at the fact that I say that the native-born workers aren't enough and that we actually need the immigration. Like, their whole thing's posited on the fact that we need immigration reform and more immigrants to actually be competitive in this field. So, like, I would say that the amount of people would get in from immigration, like the ability to outsource for that need, is like what you will uniquely solve here. Going under the DA, they completely mishandled my greenhouse gas reduction emission card here. When I tell you, if you look to their uniqueness card, it's all positive. Like, all that destruction you're seeing is because of the greenhouse gas emissions from the livestock. So, when I'm saying the immigrants reduce it, that is definitely some mitigation on this DA. So at the end of the day, you're left with a perm that has the ability, they try to say the immigrants will push out women from the workforce. I tell you that, no, look at all these cards. They said I dropped the argument on the 2014 card, but I tell you the 2014 card is old, and we've seen some significant changes in trying to get more women employed in the workforce since then. So at the end of the day, I feel the perm just works the best because we now have a better access to the native-born workers as well as foreign-born workers, and my whole entire advantage is posited off the fact that the native-born workers just aren't enough and that we need more foreign-born workers. And the H-1B that I flashed over was just where did it go now? Oh well. It was pretty much the backing. No population influx. Majority of people waiting for EB visas already in the U.S. Congressional Research Service 2020. Currently in the U.S., almost 1 million lawfully permanent foreign workers and their present foreign workers and their family members have been approved and are waiting to receive. The backlog can impose a significant hardship on these immigrants, many of whom are already residing in the U.S. So it's we're not going to really trigger this meet DA a lot harder, where it's just with H-1B visas, a lot of them are already here. So yeah, at best we just secure better workers for the U.S. And I feel like the AF and the perm world does it a lot better because we have better access to our advantage and impacts. And then when it comes down to an existential risk, judges, you're just going to really believe what do you think is going to be more likely to cause the existential risk, global warming and the leadership scenario, or just who has the better chance of solving for it, the double influx from two different areas, or just trying to somehow pull up more native-born workers versus people who are already specialized in these fields coming from abroad. So at the end of the day, Judge, I just advocate a vote for the affirmative and perm world because we actually allow for people who are already specialized in these fields to come abroad now, and we can get the relief that we need now for these issues of climate change and global leadership. Thank you. Or tech leadership.
Good debate.
Good debate.
All right. Is everybody here?
Yep.
Zach, stay here.
Oh yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
Cool. All right, y'all. Congratulations on making it to quarterfinals here at the Hornet Cup. It's been a good tournament, good debate about it. So the decision is going to be a 3-0 for the negative. Congratulations. I guess since I'm already speaking, I'll go first. I'll try to make it brief and kind of give some pointers, and then at the end of everybody's RFD, if anybody has questions or whatever, we'll take it from there. So I think this is a pretty easy decision for the negative team. There are no solvency deficits towards the counter plan, which means that I grant them 100% access to solving the case, which means that it only becomes a question of is there a link to the disad and this little internal net benefit that's happening on the counter plan. So the argument about how we've already been seeing efforts be using to try to increase participation in STEM fields is purely defensive. There is always going to be a risk that increased immigration is going to push out more women and minorities within the STEM field, which links into the permutation. So on that level alone, I think that that means that the permutation is not the best policy option, and because it solves 100% of the AF, that's a decent enough reason for me to vote. On the meat disad, I also think that that's an implicit disad towards the permutation that's never really addressed. So the only question becomes, does consumption increase under immigration or not? While I honestly believe that in the comparison of evidence, Tyler's evidence is not necessarily that compelling, I think that the articulation coming out of the NR is definitely more persuasive compared to what came out of the 2AR about how it functions. And so, you know, this kind of gets to the whole thing that I was getting frustrated with throughout the debate. I think that as the affirmative, you're very light on context and explanation. You say a lot of statements, but you don't contextualize them or give a lot of in-depth analysis. And I think that there was a lot of tricks that you could have used within this debate in order to try to give yourself more time to develop those arguments. For instance, the impact onto the meat disad is essentially just climate change, because factory farming like completely rips apart land and flora and fauna that helps with carbon sequestration, and you know, like cows and different animals produce like methane and everything like that. But then on case they just say, well, warming's not an impact. I think that an easy 1AR strategy would have been to just concede EV advantage entirely, be like, yeah, warming doesn't matter, there's no impact to the meat disad, which means that it's only going to become a question of the judiciary disad, which has no uniqueness, and the impact should have already happened for like dozens of years or whatever. And then this counter plan. You need to be making strategic concessions so that it just makes it easy for you in the debate, and also realize like how different things interplay so that you can figure out the way that the negative is going to have to go in a particular debate. So with the counter plan, for instance, it's not good enough to just be like, there's a perm, because there's always going to be a perm, but with a counter plan like this, there is going to be that issue of opportunity costs, which means that you need to go heavy on the disad, heavy on the net benefit, and talk about the solvency of the counter plan. I don't think, for instance, that the counter plan's actual text would be able to sufficiently solve semiconductor production in time, because it's about funding STEM fields, which means we have to wait a long time for people to be educated to be able to get the PhDs so that they can start building things like semiconductors, whereas we have immigrants who are waiting to get in now that can build it now. So there's a delay disad, and that's like what you need in order to be able to go against this. So yeah, that'll be it. All right.
I can. Next. I agree with everything Alex said, basically everything. I feel like I had a couple additional thoughts. Tony, I just, like, in terms of just like the persuasiveness of your speeches, I feel like I might have mentioned this to you earlier in the tournament, but it's like, you just don't sound like you believe in your own arguments when you're speaking. And in rounds that are maybe closer than this one, that's really going to hurt you in the future, where I just sort of feel like, yeah, you're just saying stuff, and those things may or may not be true, or you may or may not believe them. And obviously, like, ethos doesn't decide non-close debates, but it does tend to decide close ones in the end, no matter how much we decide to claim that that's not true. So I guess, but yeah, make sure you work on that, being like emphatic and stuff. Additionally, what else do I have? Yeah, I'm in agreement. Honestly, Alex took most of what I said for me, which is probably good because I tend to ramble. Tyler, I think that as a note, I think that that turn about training investment is it really like jives with your counter plan in a way you're not taking advantage of, and you need to be taking advantage of that because like if Tony, if you were making those arguments about like why it probably like especially the delay, like obviously the obvious delay dissad here, but also like that those leadership arguments were in the 1AR, I don't have them in the 1AR, and that needs to be like we don't solve leadership. We straight up don't have enough of a workforce. Like that's including the women we're underpaying. What are you talking about? And those arguments being more like part of your central strategy, plus the delay, plus like the kicking out of like the climate change stuff and strategic concessions that way, you're in a much better position. And that like that in but in I would respond to that, I guess, is why I'm talking about them sort of in tandem, is that the answer to that is, I believe the actual phrasing from that training investment card, Tyler, is straight up, the problem is not the workforce. The problem is employers refusing to invest in their workforce. And that is like a freaking solvency takeout that also explains why that solves your counter plan. I'd go so far as to put that on the counter plan for apps like this, because that's just like responds to a lot of what I was just saying Tony should have done on the counter plan that I think works. You're also doing a pretty good job explaining like net benefits. You need to be using phrases more like disadd to the permutation, things like that. That's going to help you out a little bit more. Your line by line, both of you, is like almost there. It's just enough that it's actually more confusing if you didn't have line by line, if that makes sense. Because you're like doing the line by line, but then all of a sudden you're not. And then you suddenly are again. And it's like, you just keep working on that. You both are almost there. But there was like, I think, and I understand sometimes why you did things in the order that you did them. But at this point, you need to start converting, especially you, Tyler, into competitive what? Now I can't remember the word. Embedded line by line, where you are extending your arguments while answering them. So even if like on the meet dissad, you're answering the first argument he makes is the link argument, and you're kind of extending your story there, then you could just, when you get to the second thing, answer any specific warrants are in like the answer to the uniqueness that's second, and still having kept that story in a sensical order. And that will help with like general persuasiveness and general keeping your own brain in the right order of operations, if that makes sense. Because I was definitely the debater who would get kind of turned backwards and upside down sometimes. So like watch out for that sort of thing. And do I have any more opinions? Probably not. Yeah, be careful, Tony, of that H1B, we're doing stuff that's already here. You might be not running that argument if they're doing like LPR is not people already in the country, the into argument, the into T. But that might be a good T to like make a short version of and run when you're running like a lot of those arguments, Tyler, because that's like the obvious out is we don't have people come into the United States. And like, yeah, Tony, just make sure you don't make those arguments when they're running into T, but you probably know that. So I get it. Have 2 blocks depending on what T they read. That's, I think, it. Yeah, that's it.
Cool. Thank you. And
All
thank
right.
you, Alex. Didn't mean to leave you out.
And yeah.
Okay, so I guess as far as my feedback, as far as the affirmative speaker, I find the affirmative speaker to be very reasonable, very logical. I really kind of like the affirmative voice. In context of the previous feedback, I do agree, right? I mean, without kind of the camera on, kind of having this logical, just kind of reasonable approach, you're not taking advantage of either paralinguistic cues or kind of moments to really highlight for judges like myself, what are the key kind of big ideas as relates to either, logical flaws in the other side, or just kind of where I should draw my attention towards. So that makes a lot of sense. I think ultimately the debate for me goes down to the DA and the counter plan. I think I could have really kind of voted in either direction. I think opposition's winning for me that immigrants may change their eating habits. I'm not really convinced on that. It's really kind of like vague, but that is there. I don't really want to vote for it. And then I look at the counter plan, and I want to believe the affirmative can perm, but I don't hear answers that are telling me how the affirmative, in a sense, engages kind of the gender ideology and kind of the identity politics that are playing out in the STEM field. Had that been addressed, I think I would have been like, cool, perm totally works. And I wouldn't have really given much credibility to the disadvantage. But because the counter plan isn't really refuted to my satisfaction, I kind of just lean more towards the negative and just kind of believe that the negative debated better, and then probably just use the flow to justify that conclusion. As far as feedback, more specifically, the negative, I've seen you twice. I think you are fantastic. But I think there's a way that you're blending together theory that can be exploited, right? The way that you're using language without providing examples, the way that you're mixing up different disciplinary approaches. There is room for a team to prep against you to exploit that. I don't really know how, but that's just kind of a sense. So I would really just encourage you to find ways to anchor. You're existing on a really ethereal plane, which is impressive, but just look for a connection to everyday reality in case you get, me who reads at a 7th grade reading level, so that I can understand what you're saying and just have access to the leftist theories that are entrenched within your advocacy. Your advocacy is for people like me to be able to just understand what you're saying. And when you're using debate terminology or speed or technical prowess to, be successful in the game, it does kind of turn me into an interloper of sorts. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I've seen your case a couple times. I think I really, really like it. One idea that I think I'm not hearing coming out of other teams or within your case is Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin and its implications it has to the global transfer of power, the way it might destabilize the dollar, the relationship it has to semiconductors, the relationship it has to China's kind of thrust towards developing mining rigs. I really think it could either complicate your case if another team prepared properly to hit it, or I think it could also just be extended out in your case as it relates to just the geoeconomic implications that it has.
Try to think of just for idea I'll have to look into. I thought about Bitcoin.
China is buying semiconductors for Bitcoin mining. So actually, it kind of makes your scenarios non-unique, right? Because China's still going to mine Bitcoin. They're still going to, does that make sense? It also links to your electric vehicles because Tesla and Elon Musk are investing in Bitcoin, and then he's using Tesla. I mean, there's a lot there.
Thank you, Josh.
That's all I got.
Cool. Thank you all for judging and great debate, Tony.
Great debate.
Good luck, everybody.
Everyone have a nice day.